Let me tell you something. Nobody moves out to 5 acres of hard-fought Appalachian woods dreaming of HOA militias, forged documents, or midnight standoffs with suburban vigilantes in pastel vests. But that's what happened to me. And if you think this is just some tall tale about poker nights and bourbon by the fire, you're dead wrong. Because it started with a newsletter and ended with federal charges, headlines, and a mug shot that still makes the local papers smirk. Welcome to my life, or at least the craziest year of it. You ready? I paid for peace the way some folks buy forgiveness with sweat and a stack of paperwork so thick it'd make a lawyer blush. 5 acres, right where the Tennessee line meets the North Carolina fog log cabin gravel drive, a patch of forest thick enough to lose cell signal and find yourself. No neighbors within hollering distance, just me, some solar panels, a propane tank, and the kind of silence you only get when the last thing you hear at night is coyotes, not car alarms or HOA bylaws about mailbox colors. I built that cabin myself. I'm Travis Grant, 52 Army Special Forces retired consultant these days, if you need the short version. I teach folks how to defend themselves and keep what's theirs. On paper, I'm just a guy with too much time, but if you ask my old squad, they'll say I'm the reason nobody in our circle ever loses a hand at poker or a fight in court. Once a month we'd host the gathering, me and 5 of my brothers in arms. Freddie, former U.S. Marshal. Milo, who patched me up more than once in Baghdad, now a medic in Utah. Ben, the bionic needs sergeant major who can outlaugh anyone. Isaac, trauma doc turned therapist. Jason, our lawyer. And Luis, border recon turned wildfire wrangler. That's 6 men, 2 dogs, a mountain of grilled meat cigars, and a deck of cards. Sometimes we laughed till our ribs ached. Sometimes we argued over football. Sometimes we sat quiet and just listened to the wind. For years, nobody bothered us. Enter Karen Bell, mid-50s, platinum hair, the kind of woman who thinks jogging is an Olympic sport, and a Bluetooth headset is a crown. She ran the Forest Peak HOA like it was her private fiefdom, her word law, her whim gospel. I'd heard of her, of course. Her development started creeping up the mountain a decade ago. Faux cabins with more satellite dishes than sense manicured yards, folks named Todd and Brittany who bought their flannel at Target. Didn't matter to me. My land was a private parcel, deeded, surveyed, and double-checked to be outside their jurisdiction. I made damn sure when I bought it, no bylaws, no fees, no pastel militias. But Karen didn't believe in boundaries. It started small, her slowing down at the end of my gravel drive, peering through the trees, pretending to birdwatch. Then binoculars appeared, and I swear she started taking notes every time Milo's Jeep loaded down like he was prepping for Armageddon rolled up for the weekend. One night, Isaac brought a trauma kit that looked like it could house a small missile, and Karen called the county to report suspicious activity. I thought it was funny at first, just suburban paranoia. You ever met a neighbor who can't mind their business? Multiply that by 10 and you're close. But it got weirder. Old Carl, who owns the last free lot before the HOA starts, flagged me down and said, "Travis, that Forest Peak lady keeps asking about you, wants to know if you and your buddies are running drills out here." Drills, he said, shaking his head like I'd gone and built a tank in my barn. I laughed it off, figured she'd find something better to do. But Karen doesn't let go. She escalates. A week later, Forest Peak HOA's newsletter drops a community safety alert warning residents of non-resident activity on adjacent properties with a little red circle drawn smack over my ridge. Potential threat zone. I almost spit out my coffee. Freddie called, "Brother, you made the paper. Do I get hazard pay coming up next weekend?" I thought it was all a joke. My mistake. She called a special board meeting, formed an emergency security task force. I'm not making this up. Pete, the ex-mall cop. Joel, who once tackled a skateboarder and called it counterterrorism. And Brett, her 17-year-old nephew, who can't even own a shotgun in this county. They bought matching vests, one in pink, no less, bear mace, tactical flashlights, the whole nine. My buddy Tony, who owns the outfitter in town, called and asked if I knew Karen. She's in here shopping for camo and talking about perimeter beautification. That's how I knew this was spiraling. Next, she posts on the neighborhood app warning folks about men in tactical gear and military posture. Military posture, what is that? Standing up straight. By now, my phone's blowing up with texts and screenshots. I still thought folks would roll their eyes, but Karen didn't stop. She got bold, filed a public inquiry about my parcel at the county clerk's office, tried to slip in a request to amend my zoning overlay. That's when my smile faded. I'm no fool. That's how you lose land without ever hearing a shot. But here's where things went full Twilight Zone. Joel, her own board member, comes to me with copies of meeting minutes, real and fake. Karen had forged a board resolution claiming they'd approved surveillance on my parcel. Problem. My land isn't under HOA control, and the signatures, half those folks were gone, one dead, another hadn't lived there in a year. She'd faked it. I brought it all to Jason, who sat across my table flipping through documents. "This is war," he said. I nodded, because I could feel it too, like old times, only now the enemy wore yoga pants and pearls. I didn't know how far she'd go until that night. Poker game going, fire crackling daisy, my blue heeler goes rigid by the porch. Then we hear boots in the brush, voices, and Karen herself yelling, "You are surrounded. This is HOA security. Drop your weapons out of the trees." Here comes Pete Joel Brett with a shotgun shaking in his hands, and Karen in a vest over a pink windbreaker waving a flashlight like it's a badge. It would have been funny if they weren't armed. Freddie stands hands up. "You're trespassing." "Armed. That's a felony." Karen starts screeching about hostile compounds and unauthorized personnel. Jason's rolling on his phone camera. Milo hits the emergency beacon to ping the sheriff's GPS. Luis, bless him, circles behind, takes the shotgun from Brett so smooth the kid barely notices before he's sitting in the mud. Pete starts raising his AR. Freddie locks eyes, dead calm, and says, "Don't." You know that tone, the one that means business. Less than 5 minutes later, the woods light up blue. Sheriff's units, ranger trucks, headlights slicing the dark. Hands up, weapons down. Except Karen, who's screaming about domestic terrorism. Sheriff Callahan looks at me, sighs like he's aged a decade, and cuffs them all. Karen's still ranting about jurisdiction. Freddie hands over the phone footage. Jason the GPS logs. Milo the surveillance stills. Brett's crying. Pete's muttering, Joel's silent. I just stood on my porch watching, thinking, is this really what peace looks like out here? At the county office, Karen's still running her mouth, accusing, justifying, claiming she prevented a domestic threat. Jason can't help but laugh. You just described half of Tennessee on a Friday night. The sheriff lays it out. Ma'am, you entered private property armed under false authority. That's not protection. That's a felony. Jason flips through the evidence, explains the forgeries, the illegal incursion, and Karen just glares, accuses us of being outsiders with fancy words. Jason leans in. You, Karen, have a flyer, a fantasy, and 5 felony charges. That's when her confidence finally cracks. You'd think that'd be the end. But when I got home, there was a dead songbird in a box, no return address. Note inside, you won the first round. But you're not safe. We see everything. I burned the thing, uploaded every camera feed and dock to off-site servers. Jason and Isaac started digging, uncovered fake resolutions, forged signatures, emails with real estate consultants about annexing my land as a security corridor for higher-priced homes. It was never about paranoia. Karen wanted my ridge for her development partners, my peace, my home, just another box to check on a spreadsheet. The story broke wide open. Feds got involved. She'd been emailing fringe citizens defense groups for advice on how to remove threats. She forged more documents, organized an armed incursion, used HOA funds to buy all that gear. Next thing, there's a federal indictment, conspiracy, forgery, unlawful militia activity, endangerment of a minor. The HOA board resigns en masse, the whole neighborhood in uproar. The county dissolves, the HOA freezes assets, brings in a neutral receiver. Even the task force gear was bought under the landscaping budget. You couldn't write this for TV. In court, Karen rolled out her expert, some national security consultant with a PhD from a diploma mill. Jason exposes him in 5 questions flat. Judge throws out Karen's injunction, refers her for fraud upon the court. The trial takes months, but in the end, Karen gets 12 years, no parole for 7. Pete and Joel, years apiece. Brett, juvenile reform. The HOA is dead, gone dissolved. The community finally runs smoother, folks mow their own lawns, and nobody spies with binoculars. As for me, the cabin's still standing, land still mine, new gate cameras, sign that says private property. Poker night, no warrants. The boys still come out. Jason even printed us a Karen-proof contract in Comic Sans as a joke. We laugh about it now, sometimes you have to. Ben always says, you don't mess with veterans on private land. Maybe that's the lesson, maybe not. But let me ask you, where's the line between keeping order and going too far? What would you do if someone tried to steal your peace with a clipboard and a grudge? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me about your HOA horror, your craziest neighbor, or just where you stand on what's right, what's justice, and who really gets to draw the line. And if you ever find yourself facing down a pink-vested militia on a Friday night, well, raise a glass for me. Freedom's worth fighting for, even when you've got to win it twice.